All the footage that will be shown now was not generated by neural networks and was not created in Hollywood studios. These are real photographs of Mars, taken by Mars rovers and transmitted to Earth across millions of kilometers of cold and eerie space. Almost every detail here is real. From the dust on the horizon to the rocks under the robot's wheels. What you see is not a fantasy, but the real appearance of another planet. The most extreme places on Mars. Mars is not just a barren planet. On its surface are the largest geological structures in the entire solar system. Many of them are so enormous that there is simply nothing like them on Earth. Mars has the tallest mountain of any known planet. Its name is Olympus. The height of this volcano reaches about 21 kilometers. For comparison, the height of Everest is just under 9 kilometers. That means the Martian volcano is almost 3 times higher than Everest. But its size at the base is even more impressive. The diameter of Olympus's base is about 600 kilometers. That's about the same as the distance from Paris to Berlin. The reason for such incredible size is the conditions of the planet itself. On Mars, gravity is almost 3 times weaker than on Earth, and there is no plate tectonics. On Earth, the continents are constantly moving. That's why volcanoes tend to shift over time and form entire chains. On Mars, however, the crust is almost motionless. And the same volcano could erupt for millions of years in the same place, constantly growing to gigantic sizes. If Olympus is the highest point on Mars, then Valles Marineris is one of the most magnificent canyons in the entire solar system. This giant canyon system is about 4,000 kilometers long. To put this scale into perspective, the length of France is about 1,000 kilometers. The canyon on Mars is 4 times longer. If Valles Marineris were on Earth, it would stretch from Portugal to the Ural Mountains. It is up to 7 kilometers deep. That's almost twice as deep as the famous Grand Canyon in the United States. Some scientists believe that this canyon was formed due to giant fractures in the Martian crust when the planet cooled and contracted. But the most dramatic phenomena on Mars occur not on its surface, but in its atmosphere. Huge dust storms arise on the planet, which can engulf all of Mars. Yes, literally the entire planet. Such storms start as relatively small whirlwinds. But due to the thin atmosphere and the huge amount of dust, they quickly intensify. Sunlight heats the surface. The air begins to rise and strong circulation develops. The dust rises higher and higher. And at some point, the storm begins to spread across the entire planet. During such storms, the sky turns orange-red. Sunlight barely reaches the surface during the storm. Visibility drops to just a few meters. Sometimes such storms can last for months. One of these storms in 2018 was so powerful that it completely blocked sunlight for the rover Opportunity, after which it stopped working forever. Some of you may be wondering, can a person survive a Martian dust storm? The short answer is yes, but only in a good spacesuit and with certain risks. At first glance, Martian storms look catastrophic. When they are captured by orbital spacecraft, it seems as if the entire planet is engulfed in a giant cloud of dust. But there's one important nuance. The atmosphere of Mars is very thin. Its density is about 100 times less than that of Earth's. Therefore, even if the wind speed reaches 100 km/h, the pressure of such wind is much weaker than that on Earth. For comparison, on Earth, a 100 km/h wind can break trees and destroy buildings. On Mars, such wind would feel more like a strong, gusty wind with sand. That means a person in a heavy spacesuit literally wouldn't be blown away. Basically, Mars is capable of turning into a giant global sandstorm that can be observed even from orbit. But the problem is something else. Martian dust is very fine and abrasive. It's like a microscopic powder. During storms, it can get stuck in equipment mechanisms, scratch the helmet visor, and settle on solar panels. That's why the storm in 2018 actually killed the rover Opportunity. The dust covered its solar panels, and it simply stopped receiving power. That's why scientists need to be well prepared for such situations. It's time to go back to the past and remember how the exploration of Mars began. Robots on Mars. Today, robots are exploring Mars. But it wasn't always like this. Just 60 years ago, humanity had no idea what was hidden on the surface of this planet. We only saw blurry spots through telescopes and made guesses. The first spacecraft to successfully reach Mars was the Mariner 4 space probe. In 1965, it flew past the planet and sent the first photographs back to Earth. And these images turned out to be a shock. Scientists expected to see rivers, maybe even vegetation. But instead, what appeared before them was a barren world covered in craters, somewhat resembling the moon. At that time, it seemed that Mars was a completely dead planet. But the research was just beginning. In 1976, for the first time in history, spacecraft landed on Mars, Viking 1 and Viking 2. Their main goal was bold: to find life on Mars. Each of the spacecraft conducted chemical experiments right in the Martian soil, but the results turned out to be contradictory. Some data hinted at possible biological processes. Others completely refuted them, and the mystery of Mars only deepened. The real revolution began in 1997, when a small robot named Sojourner landed on the surface of the planet. It was only the size of a microwave and became the first Mars rover in history. Despite its small size, this robot proved one very important thing: you can drive on Mars. After this event, missions started to become more and more ambitious. And in 2024, 2 legendary Mars rovers arrived on the planet: the Mars rovers Spirit and Opportunity. Each of them was designed to operate for only 90 days. But something incredible happened. The Opportunity rover operated for almost 15 years. During that time, it traveled more than 45 kilometers across the surface of Mars. At the moment, this is a record for another planet. It was this rover that discovered the first strong evidence that liquid water once existed on Mars. The other Mars rover met a different fate. The Spirit rover began its work in Gusev Crater, which might once have been an ancient lake. For several years, it studied rocks, photographed the surface, and climbed hills that no one had ever seen up close before. It was Spirit that discovered minerals which form only through interaction with water. This became yet another strong piece of evidence that liquid water really existed on Mars in the past. But in 2009, the following happened. While moving, the rover got stuck in soft sand. The wheels kept spinning, but it couldn't get out of the trap anymore. NASA engineers tried to free it for several months, controlling the robot from hundreds of millions of kilometers away. But in the end, it became clear it wouldn't be able to get out anymore. Then the scientists decided to use Spirit as a stationary research station. It continued to send data for about another year, but then the Martian winter came. There was too little sunlight. The battery ran out, and communication with the robot gradually faded. The last signal from Spirit was received in 2010. That's how the mission of the robot ended. A robot that was supposed to work for 3 months, but ended up exploring Mars for more than 6 years. The next step was a huge and much more complex project, the Mars rover Curiosity, which landed in 2012. The Mars rover Curiosity is one of the most famous robots ever sent to another planet. Its main task is to find out whether Mars could have ever been suitable for life. It was launched on November 26, 2011, and successfully landed on Mars on August 6, 2012 in Gale Crater. Its size is already comparable to a small car. The total cost of the mission was about $2.5 billion. But this robot turned out to be a real mobile laboratory. It discovered ancient organic molecules, traces of ancient lakes, a complex geological history of the planet, and essentially confirmed that Mars could have been habitable in the past. But the most technologically advanced robot ever sent to Mars appeared only recently. This is the rover Perseverance. It landed on the planet in 2021 and became one of the most complex machines ever created by humanity. The cost of the mission was about $2.7 billion. Perseverance can drill Martian rocks, search for traces of ancient life, and collect soil samples for future delivery to Earth. But it has another unique feature. Recently, the rover received a new navigation system that will allow it to independently determine its position on the surface of Mars, almost like GPS on Earth. This significantly speeds up its movement and makes exploration much more efficient. In 2025, another event occurred that can be called historic. The Mars rover Perseverance made its first trip along a route planned by artificial intelligence. This is the first time in history that AI has helped explore another planet. In fact, this means that robots are starting to gain more and more independence. And perhaps as early as the next decade, it will be these kinds of machines that will build the first bases on Mars even before humans arrive. When people imagine the exploration of Mars, usually one image comes to mind. A small robot slowly moving across the red desert. But that's only half the story. Satellites and spacecraft around Mars. In fact, most of the research takes place not on the surface, but in space above the planet. If you could look at Mars from the outside, you would see an amazing picture. A whole fleet of spacecraft is moving around it. It's more than one or two satellites. It's a real orbital network created by humanity to study another planet. These devices photograph the surface in incredible detail, analyze the atmosphere, search for traces of water, and help scientists understand what Mars was like billions of years ago. But there's another task that's rarely talked about. Without these satellites, the rovers on the surface wouldn't be able to communicate with Earth at all. They work like space relays, receiving signals from the robots on the surface and transmitting them over hundreds of millions of kilometers. Essentially, the first interplanetary communication network has already been created on Mars. The first artificial satellite of another planet was sent in 1971. At that time, the spacecraft Mariner 9 arrived at Mars. It became the first artificial satellite of another planet in history. But when the spacecraft entered orbit, scientists saw not Mars, but a huge cloud of dust. The planet was completely hidden by a giant storm. The surface simply disappeared from view. The scientists had to wait for weeks until the storm gradually subsided, and when the dust finally settled, the cameras transmitted images that forever changed our understanding of Mars. Giant volcanoes, canyons thousands of kilometers long, and ancient riverbeds. For the first time, it became clear that Mars was once a completely different world. Today, one of the main observers of the planet is the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. It was launched on August 12, 2005, and entered the planet's orbit on March 10, 2006. The mission's goal is to observe Mars from orbit and gather as much information as possible about the planet's surface, atmosphere, and climate. MRO is equipped with a number of scientific instruments, but the main one among them is the high-rise, high-resolution camera. It is capable of distinguishing objects on the surface smaller than 1 meter. Thanks to this, scientists can even study rover tracks, landslides, or rockfalls. In fact, scientists can examine the planet's surface in almost as much detail as satellite images of Earth. It is thanks to these photographs that scientists find ancient riverbeds, traces of landslides, ice deposits, and potential landing sites for future missions. There are 2 radio transmitters installed on the MRO. One is used for direct communication with Earth, and the other is for relaying signals from the Mars rovers. That means without the MRO satellite, the Curiosity and Perseverance rovers and others simply wouldn't be able to send their data so quickly and in such large volumes. Let's move on to another space veteran. This spacecraft has become a true legend in Mars exploration. This is Mars Odyssey. It was launched more than 20 years ago, in 2001, and it is still operating today. This makes it the longest operating spacecraft in orbit around another planet. It was Odyssey that helped discover huge reserves of water ice beneath the surface of Mars. To this day, Mars has an entire fleet of orbiters from several different countries. Among them are American NASA satellites, European spacecraft, and missions from Asia and the Middle East. Each of them adds a new piece to the vast mosaic of knowledge about the planet. In fact, humanity has already built the first research station around another planet. But instead of a single object, it's an entire network of devices in orbit. Someday, these satellites will be able to perform another task. They will help real astronauts who go to Mars by relaying communications, coordinating spacecraft landings, and helping people navigate on the new planet. And then the fleet of spacecraft around Mars will become not just a scientific tool, but the first infrastructure of the future, a continuing Martian civilization. Let's move on to the conclusions. Our little journey across Mars is coming to an end. If you enjoyed exploring space with us, be sure to support this video with a like and a comment. This is really important for the channel and will help us understand that you enjoy learning more about the universe. Thank you for spending this time with the Hubble channel. Today we learned Mars is a mysterious red planet with an atmosphere, sands, and craters where time flows a bit differently than on Earth. On its surface, there are traces of ancient lakes, minerals, and possibly signs of life that have been preserved for billions of years. Martian mountains and canyons are the giants of the entire solar system, astonishing us with their sheer size. The planet is being studied by robots, from the first Mars Rovers Spirit and Opportunity to modern explorers like Perseverance, who are opening new horizons for humanity. Artificial satellites orbiting Mars are designed for communication, navigation, studying Mars, as well as taking detailed images of the planet. Technology is developing so rapidly that things that once seemed impossible are becoming reality. Delivery of samples to Earth and traveling across another planet. And who knows, maybe in the future, a trip to Mars will become as ordinary as a flight to another country. Mars remains the most mysterious place in the world. It is a world of mysteries, discoveries, and incredible stories. And we've only just begun to uncover its secrets. This was Hubble Channel bringing you the latest space news and tours of the most amazing corners of the universe.